All right. Good morning. Let's just jump right into the reading today. I usually make a bunch of big announcements. Um, he was going to meet Herman Calloway. Herman Calloway. Bud was just going to meet Herman Calloway. And he'd been through so much. So I sucked in a big gulp of air, and I got a good grip on my suitcase, and I walked right into the light of the stage. The old horn guy, Jimmy, saw me first and said, "I thought I heard that door open. Did Miss Thomas send you, son?" I just kept walking up to the stage. I had to see my father's face. I knew we'd look so much alike that the truth would hit him as hard as that snaggletooth guy, even. Even Lefty Lewis said he could tell me and Herman Calloway were kin. He turned to see who Jimmy was talking to, and a mighty maple started shaking in the wind. My dad's face was old. My dad's face was real old, like the horn guy. Maybe too old. Maybe there's just too much proof that this was my father. He smiled at me. He had his arms crossed over his great big stomach. The first thing my dad said to me was, "Well, well, little man, what brings you here? Miss Thomas?" "I don't know any Miss Thomas, sir." "So what are you doing here?" He put his hands over his eyes to shield them from the stage lights. He looked out in the dark past the part of the bar. "Who brought you here? Your folks out here?" "No, here. I'm here to meet my father." "Who's your daddy? Why did he tell you to meet him here?" I kept looking at Herman Calloway. "He didn't tell me to meet him here, sir. I came from all the way across Litt to meet my daddy for the very first time." All the men looked over at the drummer. "Aw, man, look, this child ain't no kin of mine. What's your mama's name, boy?" I said, "You ain't my daddy." I pointed right at Herman Calloway's big belly. "You know it's you." All the eyes jumped on Herman Calloway. He quit smiling, and he looked at me a lot harder, like he was really noticing me. I knew if I was a regular kid, I'd be crying buckets of tears right now. I didn't want these men to think I was a baby, so I was real glad my eyes don't cry anymore. My nose plugged up, and a little growl came out of my mouth, and I kept my fingers pointed, and I cleared my throat, and I said, "I know it's you." The circle of men got very quiet. The younger guys looked like they wanted to laugh, but they were afraid to, and the Jimmy guy and the man who must be my father were looking at me the way grown-ups do when they're getting ready to give you some bad news or when they're ready to decide which hand they're going to smack you upside the head with. Finally, Jimmy snapped his fingers. "Hold on. It's your name, Bud." "You knew my name." I said, "Yes, sir." "Herman, don't you see, this has something to do with that telegram you got this morning. And you said you're from Flint, right, Bud?" "Yes, sir, that's right where I'm from." "Well, what in the Sam Hill is going on here?" said Herman. "First off, don't you be coming in here accusing folks of being your father. Second of all, where is your mother?" Shucks, he said it like he didn't already know. I said, "She's dead, sir. She died 4 years ago." He said, "I am truly sorry to hear that, but it's obvious you are a disturbed young man and you don't have a clue who your father is. You just tell us who you're looking after, who's looking after you now. We'll get you sent back to where it is you belong." "I belong with you, sir." "Now look here." "Hold on, Herman," said Jimmy. Jimmy's the hornblower. He seemed a lot nicer than this Calloway guy. "But you got to understand, Mr. Calloway here can't be your daddy. No how, no way, nuh-uh. I don't know what gave you that idea, but whatever, you got to get back home. Someone in Flint's worried about you." "No, sir, I don't have anybody left in Flint. That's why I came all the way here." "No one at all?" "Nope." "No brothers?" "Nope." "No sisters?" "No, sir." "What about an auntie?" "No, sir." "No grandma?" "No, sir." Shucks, looked like this guy was going over my whole family tree. "So you were living in an orphanage?" I had to be careful how I answered this. One wrong answer and I could tell that these guys were ready to give me to the cops, or give me a one-way ticket back to the home. "Well, sir, I had some problems with the folks that were supposed to be looking after me, and after I hid their shotgun and poured water all over Todd Amos, I busted out of the shed and I had to go on the lam because I thought it was about time I came here and met my father because it's been—" He raised his hand to stop me. "That's fine, son, but just answer what I ask you. What orphanage were you in?" "Well, sir, I used to be in a home, and then I wasn't, and then I was with some people that were kind of mean, and then I tried to find Miss Hill, but she moved to Chicago, but that's too far to walk." He raised his hand again. "Hold on, Bud. Go wait by the door for a minute." He pointed to the side of the stage. I walked over and I waited to see what was going to happen. I tried to push the door open and wait a little bit just in case I had to make a quick escape. The man named Jimmy and the guy who had to be my daddy started whispering. After a while, Herman Calloway raised his arms and said, "Hey, but don't forget, this is your little red wagon. You pull it if you want." Jimmy said, "Fair enough." He waved me back to the stage. "Bud, you look like you might be a little hungry, so I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're all done rehearsing, and we're about to head over to the Sweet Pea. You're invited to come along under one condition." "What's that, sir?" "Once you get something in your belly, you got to be straight with me. You got some explaining to do. We'll feed you, but you got to tell us the truth. Do we have a deal?" He stuck out his hand for me to shake. I wanted to know what I was getting myself into. "What's the Sweet Pea, sir?" "Best restaurant in Grand Rapids. Is it a deal?" I don't know how grown-ups can tell I'm always so doggone hungry, but I'm sure I wasn't going to turn down my very first real restaurant food. First restaurant food. Whoa. I grabbed his hand and I made sure I gave it a hard squeeze like Mama told me. "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." "No problem." Herman Calloway said, "Well, James, like I said, if he's going to be doing some explaining, it's got to be to you. I don't need to listen to some scamp's nonsense while I'm trying to digest my supper." He stuck a pipe that wasn't lit into his mouth and he walked off stage. Shucks, if my father had to be so doggone old, I was starting to wish that Lefty Lewis as this Jimmy guy were my dad. Herman Calloway seemed like he was going to be hard to get along with. The horn player said, "Little man, my name is Jimmy Wesley, but you just call me Jimmy." "Yes, sir." He pointed at the younger men. "The drummer there, here is Doug, the thug, tenant. The sax man is Harrison Eddie, Steady Patrick." The saxophone player said, "Aw, man, it's not Eddie Steady, it's Steady Eddie. Steady Eddie Patrick." Mr. Jimmy said, and on the trombone we have Chug Doodoo Bug Cross, and the palest member of the band on piano, Roy Dirty Deed Breed. He shook his head again and said, "Lord knows why these young musicians just can't leave the perfectly good names their mamas gave them alone. For some reason they can't. Anyway, fellas, this here is Bud. What's your last name, Bud?" "Caldwell." "Well, this here is Bud Caldwell. He's going to be our guest at the Sweet Pea for dinner. Y'all say hello to the little man, make him feel comfortable." The thug said, "What's the word, Bud?" Dirty D said, "How you doing?" Doodoo said, "Welcome, little stuff." Steady Eddie said, "Good to meet you, my man." And I said, "Pleased to meet you." Jimmy told them, "All right, he'll ride over with you four, and me and Herm will meet you there." The sax man, Steady Eddie, said, "All right, Mr. Jimmy, we'll finish loading up." The Jimmy guy went out the front door. The sax man told me, "Come on, little man. Jimmy's going to spring for your supper. At least you can do is help load the car. Grab that case over there and put it in the trunk of the Buick out back." He pointed to a long, skinny black case that had a leather handle on top. "And be careful. That's my bread and butter in there." I must have looked confused because he told me, "That's my horn, my axe, my saxophone, the thing I make all my money with, so don't get butterfingers and drop it." Oh, I said, "Oh, yes, sir." The trombone man, Doodoo said, "One thing you're going to have to drop, though, is all that sir stuff. The only two folks around here old enough for you to be calling them sir are Jimmy and, well, your long-lost dear old daddy." The whole band busted a gut laughing. The thug guy said, "I'm going to let you in on a little secret, man. I think the only reason Mr. C is denying he's your daddy is because you went and hurt his feelings." "How? I didn't do anything to him." "There it is. That's just what I mean. Here you two are getting together for the first time, and you show the man no love." He looked over at Doodoo Bug. "Bug, did you see any love being passed from this boy to his daddy?" Doodoo said, "You leave me out of this nonsense." The thug just kept going. "Shoot, man. Seems to me like you should have given the man his props. Seems like you should have given the man a whole lot more affection." You see, I know Mr. C better than most folks. I know that beneath that cold-hearted, evil, wicked, nasty, mean, Doodoo said, "Forget cheap. Don't forget cheap. Cheap's got to be in there somewhere. You know Cheap's right up there, high on the list, just as I was saying. Beneath all that festering nastiness is a tender, kind, loving human being. Why, I bet you dollars to donuts he's outside right now in the Packard sobbing about how you shunned him. When you get to the Sweet Pea, rush right up and give him a big hug and yell, 'Daddy!' And then plan to kiss right on top of his shiny bald head. Shoot, you do that and soon you'll be in his will so quick your head will spin." I put the thug guy on my list of people not to pay any mind to. Herman Calloway seemed like the kind of person who'd rather get bit in the behind by a snaggletooth mule than have somebody give him a kiss. Steady Eddie said, "Let's not get the little man killed before he has a chance to eat, Thug. Son, I hope you got sense enough to let what he's telling you go in one ear and out the nearest exit. You steer clear of Mr. C for a while. He's not someone you want to toy with. And for God's sake, whatever you do, don't call him Daddy or Papa or anything that's going to give him the idea that you two are kin. You hear?" This guy must have thought I was dumb. I said, "Yes, sir, but it isn't like my luck to come clean across the state to find my daddy, and he turns out to be a mean old coot." I slapped my hand over my mouth. I knew better than to say something like this out loud, but it just fell out of my mouth before I could swallow it down. And this is Bud Caldwell's Rules and Things to Have a Funner Life and Make a Better Liar Out of Yourself, number 63. Never say something bad about someone you don't know, especially when you're around a bunch of strangers. You never can tell who might be kin, or that person might be a lip-flapping, big-mouth spy. Sure enough, the drummer, the thug guy, started acting like he was writing down stuff on a pretend piece of paper. He said, "Ooh, let's see, mean old coot." Or did he say old mean coot? Shoot, baby, if I drop info on Latin like Mr. C, I might be able to stay in your bag longer than the last 3 drummers. You see, kid, you ain't the only one trying to get on Mr. C's good side. This is the best drumming gig in the state, and I need to hang on to it while I can. I wasn't sure if the drummer guy was really a dirty dog or if he was just a big teaser. Whatever, I'd have to work real hard on remembering rule number 68. Or was that 63? Steady Eddie said, "Thug, you're going to have to lay off the kid's chops. The little man's got problems enough. He sure don't need to have you meddling with him. Let's get the car loaded. Me and... What's your name, kid?" "Bud, not Buddy. Just Bud, not Buddy." "Right. Me and Bud, not Buddy are too dang hungry to hear any more of your lip. Of all the dusky devastators of the Depression or the Nubian Nights, Steady Eddie is my favorite." We loaded a bunch of funny-shaped suitcases in the truck of the old black Buick and then climbed in. I got in the back seat and sat between Dirty Deed and Steady Eddie with my suitcase on my lap. Doodoo-Bug got behind the steering wheel and the thug got behind him. The thug said, "So, Bud, not Buddy, I'll come right out and ask you, what's on everybody's mind? How'd you find out Mr. C was your daddy?" "My mother let me know." "Ah, I ain't trying to be funny, and I never played the dozens on no one, but let me ask you, your mama, how can I put this? Was your mama old as sand when she had you?" "Man, leave the kid alone," said Steady Eddie. "You got no call prying into his life." I never mind talking about my mama, so I told the thug, "Yes, sir, she was pretty old when I was born." Shoot, I knew I had to be either too old or crazy to have anything to do with that man. How old was she, like 80? Was she blind? "No, sir, she was old, but her eyes didn't go bad yet. She was 20 when I was born, and she was 26 when I died." That news always kills conversations you're having with grown folks. The dusky devastators got as quiet as mice with bedroom slippers. The only sound you could hear for a second was the keys clink-clang in the metal dashboard as Doodoo-Bug turned the car into the front of the little house, with a sign that said "Sweet Pea" on it. All right, we'll pause there, and we'll do more tomorrow.